License costs are skyrocketing. Enterprises and governments are in turmoil. The future is uncertain. Where can we turn for solutions to the VMware crisis? Let's meet the Microsoft solutions we need right now. I'm Michael Richardson, CTO of Dynamic Consultants Group, and your host for this exciting podcast series. I'm happy to introduce Daniel Apps, Microsoft MVP, and a man with a name that was born in the cloud. Daniel, what else do you want to share about yourself?
Oh, geez, I could talk all day. No, I love my cricket. I believe there's a T20 World Cup happening in the US at the moment, so that's on your time zone. But not the version where they wear pajamas. I like the version where they wear the white clothes. But unless we're winning, of course. I guess the last thing is that I drive on the right side, which is the left side.
That's great. I love that. So, this is episode 7 in this series talking about, what's going on with VMware and just really trying to educate people that are thinking about maybe we should look at moving from VMware to Microsoft solutions. And so it's been a lot of fun. What can you tell us about what's going on with VMware right now, and why is this significant for organizations? What are you seeing and hearing?
Oh wow, gee, that is a huge question. So I guess just a bit of context there. So I've been on that sort of Hyper-V bandwagon for a long time. I'm a Hyper-V fanboy from 2008. Prior to that, I was the VMware guy. So I've kind of keep switching religions here, but and sort of over that period of sort of 15, 16 years of working with systems integrators and MSPs throughout the Microsoft ecosystem to help them to make that Hyper-V transition. I've sort of faced a lot of that VMware world. Quite often been that faced a lot of potential hostility as I walk into the room, because people look at me as like I'm about to come in and rip up their VMware estate and install that that evil Microsoft ecosystem into their environment. But so I've faced a lot of those hostilities over the years. But over time you develop a bit of thick skin, have a bit of fun, and you sort of get a bit of banter going. And I've got some great colleagues or people I've found in the industry over the years that we've that have work at VMware or have worked at VMware or been the VMware platform solution architect or whatever it might be, or engineers, whatever it is, and we sort of become friends and a bit of banter sort of gets going, right? So it's been a interesting sort of 15, 16 years being in this sort of this in the dark side, if we will. But it was quite funny when Broadcom bought VMware. In my typical banter way, I was saying, right, yep, they're going to burn it down. They're going to burn it down. Like, it's done. That's it. Real jump ship. You're out. That's it. Hyper-V's going to win. We're going to win. We're going to get there at the end. It was just a bit of fun and a bit of banter. But who would have thought that you fast forward to sort of late last year, early this year, and that they literally did burn it down to ground, like within 24 hours, and turned the industry on its head. And created a lot of conversation, a lot of reflection, a lot of thoughts, a lot of clarifying moments, or what do alcoholics call it, a moment of clarity, or whatever it is. But who would have thought we'd be where we are now? But look, it's quite interesting. Sort of the conversation over the years has slowly evolved. It was about VMs. It was always about VMs. I need to, there was argued about features set and hot out of CPU versus, clustering and vCenter versus VMM, and shared console is just not a thing that you can do on Hyper-V, but you can on VMware. And I don't know. You have all these debates over the years, but in the last, I guess, probably 4 or 5 years, that's quite dissipated quite a bit, because it's become the cloud war, right? And VMware just became that staple platform. And you had your organizations or your service providers a lot using Hyper-V, and you had that sort of that cloud war happen, and that sort of Hyper-V versus VMware fight went down a little. But when this all sort of happened, the conversation started again. But instead of it being a like Ford versus Holden fight. That's the two car brands that we have here in Australia. Maybe like Chevrolet versus I don't know what.
Yeah, Ford and Chevy is a big one over here. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, same sort of thing. So that's how Ford versus Holden, right? Even though they don't make them here anymore, neither of them. But that was always. But that conversation sort of went away, and it was always they started to become more about cost, about cloud enablement, about ease of doing business, about this stuff becomes commodity, becomes a utility essentially that you just want to consume, and you want to get the best bang for buck and feature set that you can. But I think what I didn't quite expect is that no matter where organizations are on their journey, or the ones that I speak to anyway, no matter where they are on their journey, there's one sort of consistent tone to the discussion is, well, we're not just going to make a big bang decision. We're not just going to lift and shift. We're not just going to move to re-platform. We're not going to just sort of replace and continue on. This is probably a time to have a think about where we are in our journey, what our technology stack looks like, what our roadmap looks like. And that conversation could be something very short and narrow, or it could be a huge, bigger than Ben-Hur kind of concept. But everyone that I speak to, there's a tone of that. Okay, we might need to change something here. Maybe we need to actually revisit how we do things, and that kind of opens up the world to a conversation about what works for them, actually where they are now, what's actually working for them now, and what works for them in the future. I think the discussion around what's better, what's this, that doesn't help anybody. I think what does help organizations is to look at what they actually need, what their applications are, what their geographical footprint looks like, and sort of start to look at the options that are out there. I guess that moves on to the options that are out there. I see really four net results here. One is move to cloud. So they start to look at leveraging cloud a bit more, and not just so much lift and shift, to start looking at modernization. Let's start to break down our application suite and go on that journey. We've got our VMware licensing for however long. Let's put a set line in the sand. Let's pay another renewal, and now let's start to actually put a time and date on a modernization strategy. And that could be one cloud, could be multiple cloud, could be a hybrid even. And then they've got the other option is the jump ship. Those people who are going, okay, look, I basically just need to refactor. Okay, cool. Yep, I want to look at other things and cloud and whatever, but I really just need to get off this now. I don't have the cost, and I'm in the post-COVID squeeze. I've been punching cash into, in 2020, it was all about remote desktops, remote work, and fleet enablement. 2021, 22 was all about security, and that kind of stuff. And 2023 was take a restock, and oh no, I've ignored my infrastructure for 4 or 5 years. I really need to do something, but I don't have budget. I need to do something, but I don't have budget. So, a lot of organizations are probably going, well, we need to modernize, but let's re-platform onto something like Hyper-V, where you get a bit more cost benefit there, and start to leverage some cloud services where it makes sense. The third option is diversify. Companies that go, look, we just absolutely, we got this application, or this infrastructure, or this investment. We have to do VMware. We can't just jump ship, But let's now dabble in something else, or let's go 50-50 split, or what workloads can migrate, or what re-platform can we do if it's to something like it might not even be VMs, it might be like a containerization service, like an OpenShift or something. So diversify. So build up a multi-estate rather than be, I guess, at VMware or Broadcom's whim, but. And the last one really is they just go, we'll just stay on VMware. So I guess it depends on the organization and where they are, and the cost impact and what it actually means to run their business. So they're kind of the 4 real net results we see out of this. To sort of, I guess, to tie that all back into to where I fit in, I guess, in the industry is that hybrid world is. every one of those organizations, every one of those conversations, a conversation about hybrid cloud comes in. Even the ones that end up maybe just going to look at this as re-platform, they're starting to look at, okay, well, do I need to run a bunch of SQL servers? Do I need to have a Citrix farm? Do I need to maybe I can start leveraging Azure SQL, AWS, or whatnot? But and the ones that that's consistent across the lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, in kind of summary, so you're seeing a lot of those conversations where people are going, okay, I maybe am not ready to make this huge leap all at once, but let's take a step back and let's plan out our roadmap for the next 3-5 years and figure out, okay, there probably does need to be some significant shift in what we're doing. And this whole VMware situation is a catalyst for that to say, okay, we've got something major and new that we really need to consider. Our costs are likely going to go up considerably if we do nothing. And so now there's going to be organizations that do nothing, right? And they're just going to eat the cost. And that's a valid choice in some scenarios. But I think a lot of people are going, okay, I can't really just absorb that cost. So what are my other options, right? And so that's where it may be a roadmap of over the next 3 years, depending on where your renewal's at, or it may be that you've got enough time to really buckle down and say, okay, we're going to do something like replatforming or modernizing now and really give it the attention prior to our renewal if that's possible. So a lot of different strategies coming out of this, but that's really interesting to hear, your perspective on what conversations you're having right now. So the kind of the direction I want to go with this conversation is I want to start talking about how do organizations decide. And so like 5 years ago, it was cloud is the answer, right? Like that's just what's next. Well, we're going to go to the cloud, of course. That's what everybody's doing, right? And so, but now it kind of feels like we're in this kind of post-cloud hype world, and that's not to say post-cloud, because I think it's still a great destination for a lot of these workloads, and just great for agility and modernization. But I think people are starting to rethink whether everything belongs in the cloud, right? Like maybe there are some things that it makes more sense, whether it's financially or for a lot of other reasons, to stay on-prem, right? So what do you think are some of the key deciding points and things that people should be thinking about if they're going, okay, I'm on VMware, I'm trying to figure out what's next for us, and should I go to Azure? Should I go Azure Stack HCI, Hyper-V? Like, what are some of the key deciding points in your mind for what guides those organizations?
Bit to unpack there, but I just want to touch on your points, or a couple of your points around the cloud journey that the organizations went on. A lot of organizations, especially, lifted and shifted, picked up, put it all on cloud, and absolutely, cloud is. I mean, this is a bit of marketing coming out. This cloud is not a destination, right? It's a journey.
Sure.
But it's the. I think there's a whole bunch. There's a few bits and pieces. There's a few timelines sort of converging here, in the sense that sort of in 2016 to 2018, it was all cloud, and the message was, if you're not embracing cloud, you're failing your business, you're falling behind. We have this newspaper called the Financial Review here in Australia, and on Tuesdays they would have the tech column, the CTO, CIO section, and that would basically be the Tuesday morning. It would be when the Azure's and AWS would be having all these articles or these blogs come in and say, if you're not embracing the cloud, you're falling behind. And so every Tuesday afternoon, the customer bring up, we need to move to cloud. Obviously it didn't happen like that. I'm just being facetious, but and that was big in the 2016 to 18. So everybody lifted and shifted. But also the cloud providers, like that was when the big AWS, Azure, and Google, I guess to a far lesser extent, but we're really trying to ramp up their cloud ecosystems and heavily incentivizing their sales teams to drive consumption. And organizations bit the bullet. They jumped on that bandwagon. They picked it all up. They lifted and shifted, put it up in there. And you fast forward to where we are now, and so in 2023 there was a lot of hype, or a lot of, not hype, but an undertone in the industry of repatriation happening. I mean, you just go Google or Bing or Ask Jeeves or whatever your flavor is, and you go look at repatriation in 2023, and there's a plethora of articles of AWS freaking out about that repatriation trend. And that happens with Azure, happens with cloud as well. But I don't think that's because of anything inherently bad with cloud. The cloud's amazing. Like it's the hyperscalers have some amazing features and functionality, but it's not a one size fits all. So they're kind of starting to pay the price for maybe not forcing customers, that's unfair, but doing that whole lift and shift, or incentivizing their salespeople to do lift and shift, because that's where your big fat commissions come on from the big VMs, right? Getting a customer to go and turn on a couple of functions doesn't pay your mortgage or give you a Mercedes, but moving their 1,000 VMs into Azure would give you be able to give you a new C class, or I don't know my Mercedes, so I don't know if that's a good one or not. But we've started to see that trend. And then you sort of get to the end of 2023, and this all happens with VMware. It's like this. We're in this sort of really interesting time where the industry's woken up to, well, you know what? It's not just a one size fits all, as we mentioned, and we've got these customers that picked up everything and put it in cloud, and they're starting to look to cost optimize again, post COVID squeeze 2020, that whole spiel again. So they're kind of looking to bring costs down. And they're starting to see the big line items in cloud are their big fat VMs and their infrastructure. Whereas the cost of infrastructure, physical infrastructure now is actually very very attractive to organizations, and they can put a cost perimeter, a cost bubble around a colo as a service or whatever, private cloud, if you will. So there's a cost driver there, but then there's also that sort of that performance. There's also the cost certainty, and you've got organizations who are on the other side who haven't embraced cloud. They're all VMware or whatever, and they're starting to go, well, hey, I need to look at cloud now. Now's that time. We couldn't move to cloud for whatever reason. Our VMware engineers and team, our VCPs were not letting us migrate because we had to absolutely run on VMware, and that's the only way that our business would run. Now that's being pulled away, obviously you can be a little bit facetious, but organizations are starting to look at that. So you've got this mishmash of these various factors, and all these organizations are in various timeline or various points in their timeline, and it's all leading to a very similar, I guess, evaluation, which is what's right for them. How does their roadmap look? And this is where that hybrid cloud thing comes in, right? It's whether they look at the workloads and go, well, we can pick up big VMs. We can, instead of them, costing us a bunch in cloud, we can put them in a contained data center, get nice high performance, low latency, highly available, cost containment, fixed costs, certainty, no balloon costs, no surprise costs there. But we can also get a connection to cloud. Maybe manage that infrastructure from cloud, leveraging cloud services on my tin, or deploy to cloud where it makes sense, and you sort of have that hybrid ecosystem. And this is where customers are starting to look at, well, what does that look like? What does that actually look like? Marketing and architecture out there talks about all these kinds of things, but what does that actually look like? And this is where I guess, being that sort of that elephant in the room for 15 years, being the Hyper-V guy, I'm getting a bit excited now, because Azure Stack HCI, Azure Stack, that Azure hybrid scenario, Azure hybrid story is a really mature and clear vision. Sure, there are bits and pieces of that puzzle which are still needing some work. And who knows what it's going to look like in 12 months? Some of the widgets or whatnot. But the actual vision about having your workloads run where it makes sense for you, having to leverage cloud services so you can deliver cloud managed solutions on your infrastructure, so where it physically lives. You've got a cost containment bubble there. You've got high performance, low latency, Geographically, in geographically challenging locations like Australia, we're quite a vast geographically the size of the US, but with a population of, I don't know, Hawaii, actually no, a bit more than Hawaii, but there's one of your small states, I don't know, but so we've got some geographical challenges. So the hybrid cloud really does start to crystallize there, and with Azure Stack HCI, that's being it's becoming a really viable option.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I lost my way there, did I?
No, you're good. You're good. So
Yeah.
that was a really good summary of like where organizations are and have been, over the last 5 years or so with this whole cloud hype cycle and kind of coming back to this, well, maybe on-prem, maybe hybrid is the way to go. And there's the hybrid story is really interesting because it's really trying to marry the best of both, right? Of the agility and the repeatability of cloud, right? With a few click deployments of things, stuff like that, while also trying to leverage some of the cost benefits of on-prem or some of the performance benefits of on-prem with, my workloads can run next door, like literally right there. I can point at it, right? I can have super low latency or I can buy the hardware, and that was my cost. And then of course there's some ongoing licensing but much less cost compared to running those large VMs in
Well, it's
public
fixed
cloud in
cost
Azure.
almost.
Yeah,
It's almost fixed cost. It's a certainty, and that's I think
that's
that's what's
true.
driven a lot of the frustration. So around from I get from the CFO side of things is they're going, well, how much is this going to cost? And elasticity is great, but something I hear from our customers is, oh, okay, we've got a new application or we've got a project or whatever. Everything sort of it doesn't you don't get any economies of scale. It kind of just you need another couple of VMs, a couple of databases. Well, that's a price of another VM. It's a price of another database, and you've got to do your whole your framework and your whole best practices and your deployment, your tests, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you buy a fixed amount of tin, stick it in a data center, give yourself an overhead of 30-40%, and you go need to deploy another 20, 30 VMs or however big your platform is, and you deploy them. Yeah, sure, there might be licensing cost on maybe the application running, but the way that if you're deploying Linux, there's no OS cost, and if you're deploying Windows, where you've probably got data center licensing, which gives you unlimited VMs, and you're not getting charged per vCore, unless it depends on your application you're running. But if you want to spin up a couple of Windows VMs or Linux VMs and deploy an application, it doesn't cost you anything more than the actual application cost. So it gives them a bit more certainty around that as well. But
yeah, for sure. And kind of the argument that I've heard on that note of cost and cloud versus on-prem is, if you truly are maximizing your utilization of a VM, like, okay, so if you're running something 24/7 in Azure, like you're going to pay for that amount. But if you can maximize your VMs, like it's cheaper for you to just buy it. I mean, you're leasing. It's like the leasing versus buying a car discussion, right? Like if you lease it, you're going to end up paying more in the long run if you just always lease versus if you buy a car. Like I've got an outlay that's this, but then it's mine, right? Like then I have an asset that is going to last me for X number of years until I need to go buy new, right? It's and kind of the revelation that I've heard people talking about is it's really no different in the cloud. Like you're going to pay per amount of performance that you need, but you're going to pay a little more because they're enabling all of these things, which are great, right? They're enabling, all of these cloud services, but it ultimately can be cheaper at the right scale in your own data center. So there is a real kind of cost conversation, but that doesn't mean like, oh yeah, everybody should be on-prem, because there's other benefits, right? There's the agility, there's the feature set that like you just can't get everything on-prem, because they're, cloud providers are a step ahead, because they can invest in the R&D to really enable that, right? So it's a little bit of back and forth, but that's why lifting and shifting is so expensive, is because if you're literally just renting out all of the same CPU stuff in Azure, the cost is going to be really high. You've just moved from a I bought a car to a I'm leasing a car for, and it is more expensive. So anyway, that whole cost conversation can get really, really interesting and
That is,
complex.
and I think that to again just try and summarize that a little bit, or sort of just dovetail a bit, is again, it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
I've worked with some organisations, so in Australia, our aged healthcare industry, they are all capex based. They do not do anything opex. So for them to go and spend a couple of $1 million on a data center versus 50 grand a month or whatever it might be, they're like, no, we'd much rather do the thing. But if you got some organizations it doesn't matter. Some maybe like retail, they're about minimizing the capital expenditure and maybe just having the small costs monthly. But I'm trying to think of a good example of where it's where the OpEx is better. But I guess consultancies or MSPs maybe. But yeah, so I guess it comes back to that. There's no one size fits all discussion, and having the opportunity to, I guess, pick the best of both worlds. And then I've always do this thing. Anyone that's sort of spoken before, they're probably sick of me saying this. But you adjust the dial. Like, it doesn't matter who. Every customer I talk to, 99.9% of customers or organizations I talk to, it's the same conversation. The difference is just where are we adjusting that dial? What suits you? Is it more of a finance based? Is it performance based? Is it geographical? Is it legislation? Is it are you OpEx? Are you CapEx? Are your workloads big fat monolithic applications that you haven't upgraded in a long time, and that's your line of business application that you kind of is critical? Or are you a bit more containerized? Are you a bit more app centric? Are you a bit more SaaS? Are you a bit more whatever? So let's adjust. Do you have multiple sites? Do you have one site? Again, where does the dial suit you? And it's going in with a one size fits all approach doesn't work. I think it doesn't help anyone that perspective. But it's to be completely contradictory. It is the same conversation I have with everyone. Is just where does it fit for them?
Yep, absolutely. So to really kind of hone in on the question and the topic, like if I'm looking to move from VMware to Azure or Hyper-V or Azure Stack HCI, like how do I decide? And I know we've kind of said, well, it may not be everything, but do you have any like, okay, here's some key points, like, okay, this might drive you more to Azure versus this might drive you to on-prem with Hyper-V or Azure Stack HCI?
That's a really hard one. I guess it comes back to those points, right? What actually makes sense for you? If you're about cost certainty and you don't want to have any sort of surprise costs, then maybe, and you're just running the same applications. You're not really modern. Born in the cloud. You're not a Netflix. You're more of an organization that's sort of been running around for 30, 40 years, and you're kind of just keeping the lights on as far as your IT goes. And then maybe less cloud and more Azure HCI is right for you. Whereas if you are modern, you've got a lot of integrations, more SaaS based, then maybe more cloud is right for you. I know that it's been quite appetizing to be the geography thing. We've got multiple sites, customers with multiple sites. They wanted to be able to deploy, and they've got multiple different sized sites. So they'd love to have a templated solution. They deploy at all of their sites, whether it be for a handful of users, a satellite site, or a big branch site or wherever it might be in one of the capitals. Trying to find a solution that fits the template that fits across the board can be difficult, but that's where is that Azure Hybrid, the Azure Stack HCI story really works, because you can scale from 1 to 16 nodes. It's the only HCI solution that go from 1 to 16. You can go from 1 to 16. You can go from 16 back. I don't know why you'd want to go back, but but you can do. So you can have that same template, whether you're just starting off with a branch site, and you can do a little small server with a couple of SSDs in there, very low cost entry, a couple of VMs, do whatever you need to do, or you could have a big facility where you've got several clusters running, where you've got the exact same architecture, the exact same management tools, management processes, single pane of glass. It's all managed by the Azure console. It can be managed by the Azure console. You can use the legacy tools, if you will. I'm personally a PowerShell fan, so that doesn't matter whether you're on-prem or whether you're cloud or whatever. So if you could work out a template that works for you, and then have a look at your estate, work out what your drivers are. If the cost, what is it? Is it about the actual, you want cost certainty, or is it about you don't want to have cost commitment? Because if you're going to buy stuff, well, then there's a bit more of a commitment, right? So whereas cloud, one organization I was working with about 18 months ago, they were deploying an application. They were doing it in Hong Kong, and it was huge. The infrastructure to run it was going to be about 40 to 50K a month, but they needed to do 3 to 6 months of it to trial to see if it actually takes off. So they couldn't commit to buying the infrastructure. They could have bought the infrastructure for maybe about $500,000, but they ended up spending about 40, 50K a month because their driver was not being able to pull it out in 3 to 6 months if that doesn't work for them. So I guess look at what your drivers are. Look at what the things you can't commit to as an organization, or they're influencing those. Look at your integrations as well. So not every integration works with everything. Whilst most things work in the VMware Hyper-V world, most things work. All the reputable integrations like the Veeams and the Commvaults and the monitorings, the SolarWinds, all those kind of things, they all pretty much work with VMware and Hyper-V. So if you're making that transition, you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to work. It's not the exact same, but you can pretty much guarantee it's going to work. I think there's a lot to consider there. If you're something that you mentioned, actually, one of the other, I can't remember which other episode it was. You said 75% of all enterprises have VMware, and I heard that and I went, oh, well, 100% of enterprises have got Microsoft. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I thought to myself, well, surely every enterprise that's worth their salt, unless you work at Google, run Microsoft products. So you're already in that ecosystem. So I guess that's to bring that back to the point of the conversation is, well, if you're already a Microsoft customer, that gives you leverage to maybe further gain some benefits in your licensing, or some incentives to be on a Microsoft-based infrastructure rather than not. And again, look, to come back to at the end of the day, whilst I pick on some of my blue badge friends with this, at the end of the day, I mean, hyperscale, all it really is hosters. They've replaced the hosters of the world. So the Azures, the AWSs, the Googles, and the OCIs, they're hosters now. They're no longer software providers, they're hosters. So their main driver is to host your applications, your data, and to get you onto their platform. So again, if you're looking to optimize your costs or whatever, there might be, depending on your estate, that you might be able to drive some cost benefits by dangling that carrot to Microsoft, saying, hey, we'll stay on Azure if and they might give you some better pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all some really great, and I really like how you focused on the business points of this decision, because we can get into some of the technical things, and I think it would be good to mention some of those, but before you get there, a lot of times these decisions are driven as business decisions first, right? Like CapEx, OpEx, what's our long-term business strategy, right? Are we ready to commit to something, or do we need flexible scalability and some of those and really coming back to what is it that you're trying to do, right? Because in some ways, like you said, this is about VMs, but it's also like if you're is there a specific app you're trying to run? Is there a specific workload or service you're trying to enable? And that's where that whole modernization roadmap comes in, right? To say, okay, are we at a place where we can containerize, or where we can just deploy these apps in a platform type service like a web app, or do we really need a whole SQL server VM, or can we get away with some of these platform services like Azure SQL, right? And so those are some of the driving points in my mind, that it's not just like, okay, where can we run VMs the cheapest, which cost is a huge factor, and that's a big business deciding point, but also what is it that IT is trying to enable for our business, right? And that really helps to guide. And so I'm really glad you focused on a lot of that business context, that really is key for developing the right kind of a roadmap for organizations. But I think too, though, I mean, we can come back to some of the technical drivers, right? Like, what are my latency requirements? Like, is Azure going to support my latency requirements because I can deploy this closer, right? Or what services are available, and start to look at some of the features that are available. Like today, you can do Azure SQL on Azure Stack HCI now, right? You can do AKS, Kubernetes on Azure Stack HCI, right? So Azure Virtual Desktop, there's a lot of these cloud services where 2 years ago it was like, well, the obvious answer is, if you really want to leverage some of the most modern things, you're going to go to Azure, as long as your connectivity supported, as long as the cost model works for you. It's really neat and exciting to see that kind of flowing back the other way as some of that innovation flows down to the on-prem platform. So a lot to think about. I think a lot of different decision points, but it's an exciting time in my mind, where there's this catalyst to really have these conversations, right? To really have okay, VMware has thrown us a wrench in the works. So what are we going to do about it? And now let's reevaluate our strategy and our roadmap. So exciting time for organizations. Well, let me, I know we're getting close to time here. So let me just ask, is there anything else that you would say to enterprises wrestling with what to do in this situation? I'm on VMware. What am I going to do? My costs are changing, and I don't know where I'm going to go next. Any kind of final advice?
At the end of the day, VMware is a service or a product that you're paying for, right? And if I can bring it back to something very close to probably a lot of people's hearts, and hopefully most people that are listening to this will resonate with this, is like a Netflix or a Disney or an Amazon Prime or whatever. Like you buy their. When I first signed up to Amazon Prime, I think it was Disney. I think it was $5 or $5.50 or something like that a month. It was ridiculously cheap. And now it's sort of approaching that sort of $15, $16 a month, $18 a month. Netflix, I think, tripled, since I've had, maybe not tripled, maybe it's over doubled since I've had it. And you're continually evaluating whether it's right for you. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I've still got Netflix. I've still got my Amazon Prime. I've still got my my Disney. Not that I really watch Disney, but I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd, so I can't possibly turn off my access to my on-tap Star Wars subscriptions. But it's just a constant evaluation, I guess, to go, well, what's your cost benefit analysis here? Look, this is the cost to run our business, and does this make sense? If it doesn't make sense, well, then you're going to have to look at a strategy, get an analyst, get a survey done, get some consultants here, some consultants in, and have a look at to help you identify what might be the correct approach for you. There's no just one silver bullet here. I think it's just really have a look at your requirements pragmatically. Take all the the Chev versus Ford arguments out of the room, and be about, okay, well, if we need to get a car, we've got to get it to going somewhere. Do we have 4 seats? Do we have an engine? Do we have wheels? Great, cool. Well, no, we no longer fit in this car, or we no longer need this vehicle. Then let's shift our mode of transport. So try and simplify the decision or the process as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's great advice. Now's a good time to reevaluate for a lot of organizations, and I think there's going to be some that decide we're going to bite the bullet and stick with VMware, and the cost is going to be higher, but it's what's right for our business. And I think there's others. I'm excited to see where some others go, and I think getting some outside advice is a great point.
Something in that, just not really about enterprises, but is about I can't believe this hurts. I think this not hurts. I find this offensive almost, in the sense that they've taken away the not-for-profit and the education licensing.
Yeah.
So like some schools, and sure, schools make money, but like the thing is, you're driving the cost straight up of education. Like the decision. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Ben mentioned it in his episode that he did with you. Shout out to my mate Ben across the ditch. He's really just an Australian in denial. But he made a point of the knock-on effect that this has had throughout the industry has been quite startling. And yeah, so I found that quite offensive that not-for-profits are being hit by this.
That is a big deal. It's painful. You got tight budgets, and you were relying on some of those discounts, and now all of a sudden you're getting lumped back in with the for-profit enterprises, and it's for-profit. They're seeing sometimes 8-10x cost increase for nonprofit. If you were at like a 90% discount or something before that, you're looking at 100x increase maybe in costs for your VMware infrastructure. So that's really kind of insane. But So anyway, on that note, I'll just say, Daniel, thanks so much for joining. I think this has been a really great and enlightening episode. I hope our listeners got a lot of value out of just talking through some of the decision points and how do I decide what's right for our organization, what's next. So thank you so much. Thanks to our listeners for listening. Come back for the next episode, which is actually a special one. We're doing a panel with all of the guests over the last 7 episodes are coming back, and it's going to be chaos, but it's going to be hopefully really enlightening. We're going to have a whole room full of experts really talking about these same topics and just having a bit of fun along the way. So you can also find more content at richardsoncloud.com. Thanks again, Daniel. Appreciate you joining.
Pleasure.